Hello, welcome again to the topic of nanomaterial. So I am Dr. Anandarup Goswami from Division of Chemistry. Okay, so today what we are going to finish up, we are going to talk about the classification of nanomaterials. But before going into that, we are going to discuss a little bit about the properties of nanomaterials. Okay, the first one that we basically tried during our discussion of properties of nanomaterial, we tried to answer why nano is different than the bulk. In this particular case, we talked about high surface area to volume ratio. Once you have high surface area to volume ratio, that allows you to have more surface atoms. So in that particular case, that there is a higher chance that you are going to have more activity as compared to the bulk counterpart. Okay. So what about quantum confinement effect? We have discussed in details about with some examples where you have certain particular nanomaterial. Once you have a material at the nanoscale, their electronic motions are restricted. Once you have restricted motion, that means there is something peculiar things happen in terms of the energy scale. So what happens? In this case, I have talked about the 0 dimensions where essentially all the 3 dimensions are at the nanoscale. So in that case, you have discrete energy levels as compared to band structure, if you say. Okay? Whereas in the bulk semiconductor, if you have bulk semiconductor in a 3D, that essentially means that you have none of the dimensions are at the nanoscale. That means when you talk about the nanoscale, you talk about 0 to 10 to 100 nanometers, right? If you don't have your dimensions at the nanoscale in all 3 directions, then you are going to have a 3D structure. So that is going to give you kind of continuous energy levels, which is normally can be described in terms of band structure. Okay, so once you go from 3D to 0D, then it's even essentially what you are going to get. You are going to get more and more discrete energy levels. In addition, what we have also discussed that while doing this, their energy gap, especially the band gap, if you are talking about semiconductor and insulator, their band gap increases. Right? That's also something very, very interesting because that is going to give you a very unique optoelectronic property. So this is something what we have actually gone through. So now let's discuss more about the classification. Now when you talk about classifications, as far as nanomaterials is concerned and as far as any materials are concerned, one thing that you have to keep in mind, you have to actually look through the properties, or you have to identify the parameters by which you can classify, because there are enormous possibility that you can think of in order to classify them. So let's see how many ways you can classify in a very, very broad sense. It's not like those are the only ones. You can have other ways of classifying nanomaterial as well. But first one is actually about the dimensionality. When you talk about dimensionality, as I explained before, it depends on in which direction electrons are restricted. So based on that, you are going to have different types of nanomaterials, which I have kind of briefly explained about from 3D to 0D, but that's one of the primary ways of classifying nanomaterial. Okay, so then you can have composition. So here while doing the composition, again there are so many different ways you can actually think of when you talk about the composition of nanomaterials. That is okay, but here what we are going to do, we are going to classify based to some extent based on whether they belong to inorganic class or organic class. Okay, and such a way we will try to identify what are the specific things that we need to know about in terms of composition. Okay. So next is origin. Now this is something when people actually have started thinking about nanomaterials, at that time they were not very much interested in terms of finding out the origin of nanomaterial. That's actually, it came much later when people have started thinking about the natural availability of the nanomaterial. Then and only then people started thinking about the origin, and this particular classification is essentially way to actually segregate the different types of nanomaterial which are found in nature, or whether you have synthesized them, or whether they are coming as a offshoots of some kind of industrial process or not. Okay, so this is something also we are going to classify. Fourth is morphology, depending on the shape. Okay, again there are different ways to classify among these also, but we will try to find out basic criteria how we can talk about this morphology. Okay, so last but not the least, the uniformity. So let's talk about the dimensionality. Okay, so now this is actually the figure that I have shown you earlier also. Okay, what you have done here, essentially what I just explained to you, in this particular figure you are going from higher size to a lower size. If you look at just the left one, higher is 6 nanometer, lower is 2 nanometer. Once you go from here to here, as you know that we started thinking about more and more discrete energy level. So once your energies get much more discretized, and the same time once you have this so-called band gap, in this particular case it got widened, then you are going to have different types of optoelectronic properties. One of them I have shown you, that once you actually in the dark, once you shine light on it, they glow with the different colors, and depending on the size, again they will show these different types of colors, which are very much useful for any of your electronic and optoelectronic properties. For example, you can nowadays, this is if it's a quantum dots, people are trying to think of utilizing them on your TV screen. It's not commercialized as of yet, or not fully explored, but that could be one of the possibilities, right? So these are the ways that people can think about it. Okay, so this is kind of the basic idea that we have discussed, right? So now what does it, how we are going to classify them? That's the main thing that we need to think, right? So as I said, depending on the dimensionality, that means whether you are 0 dimension, 1 dimension, 2 dimension, 3 dimension, depending on that, you are possibly going to get different types of energy levels. And at the same time, those energy levels are also going to define whether what type of material that you have. Okay, for example, for bulk semiconductor, the way by which we define them is essentially as 3D. Why 3D? Because that means in case of 3D, all 3 dimensions are above 100 nanometer. In ideal case, that would be the definition. Okay, so now that means that in this case the energy level that you are going to have, they are going to be considered more, you can explain them using more of a band structure than discrete energy level. That's the first thing. Okay, so now let's go to the other extreme. Okay, where all 3 dimensions are at the nanoscale. Okay, so what does that mean essentially? That means in this particular case, electrons are not actually that much confined. Okay, if it's 200 nanometer, it will be much relatively more confined as compared to, let's say, if you have a material of 1 centimeter. Okay, but it is not that much confined. Once you go to the extreme where all 3 dimensions are at the nanoscale, in that particular point, what you are going to have, you are going to actually restrict movements of electron in all the directions. Okay, that's how you can define zero-dimensional nanomaterial. Okay, you can define in such a way that in this particular case, your electronic motions are restricted in all the dimensions. So 3D where nothing is restricted, 0D where all 3 dimensions are restricted. So there has to be some middle point, right? Some middle points rather. There have to be 2D and 1D. What are those? In case of 2D, is essentially, what do you mean by this? Graphene is a 2D material if you look at in terms of composition. We will discuss that in a second. Okay. Once you have 2D, then this is the one that is at the nanoscale. Okay. So it's like single layer graphene means the layer will be around only few nanometers. So electrons are restricted actually on this direction. Okay. Similarly for this one, if it's a carbon nanotube, this diameter are actually restricted. So in that case from 0D, if you look at the 0D part, 0D all 3 dimensions are restricted. 1D, 2 dimensions are restricted, one on which it can move freely, the electrons. 2D is actually 1 dimension which is restricted, the other side it can move. 3D means there is no restrictions at all. Okay? So that's how you can define nanomaterial in terms of dimensionality. Okay, these are some of the examples. So if you have a 2D material, it's called quantum well. If you have 1D nanomaterial, it's called quantum well, and if you have 0D, it's called quantum dots. Okay, so these are the 3 terms that are normally used when you actually classify nanomaterials in terms of their dimensionality. Obviously, if they are not in the nanoscale, you can call it as bulk. Okay, this is a semiconductor example that you are, that's why we are writing this as a semiconductor, but you can write it in other ways also. Okay, so once you clear this up, let's see some of the examples. Okay, so these are the nanomaterials classification based on dimensionality. Okay, so what we are having, 0D, as I said, all 3 are restricted, right? So it's a nanosphere or clusters. For example, fullerene that we will be seeing in a few class, that is actually, it's a structure, it's a, as I said, it's a geodesic structure where all the dimensions are at the nanoscale. Okay, gold nanoparticle is another example. So anything, if you have a sphere where the diameter and the where the diameter is at the nanoscale, that essentially is going to tell you that that's kind of a 0D structure. If you have 1D, obviously I said this is at the nanoscale, but this is not necessarily at the nanoscale. Okay, so in that particular context, it's called 1D because that corresponds to the one that is not at the nanoscale. It doesn't have to be, it can be at the nanoscale, but the moment it will be at the nanoscale, you can classify them as 0 dimension. Okay, so what are the examples? One of the major examples that you will see is carbon nanotube. That's a 1D material. What about 2D material? Once you go to 2D material, essentially we are talking about thin film. As I said, it's graphene. Why? Because these heights that we are discussing, these heights are restricted. This is at the nanomaterial scale. Okay? In other 2 directions, they don't have to be at the nanoscale. Okay? Once you make this 2D nanomaterial, essentially what we are looking into, thin films. plates, layer structure, where you have one layer which is at the, where the dimension or the height of the layer is at the nanoscale. Okay. Once you have the last one that we have is actually 3D, where is NM means nanomaterials. Okay. So once you have that, essentially the polycrystals that you are going to have, where none of the dimensions are at the nanoscale, then you can call it as 3D. Okay. Okay, when you talk about the nanoscale, you already know we are basically talking about, by the definition of nanomaterial, that it has to be less than 100 nanometer. Okay, so this is, I hope this is pretty much clear at this stage. So here I have actually given you some very specific types of nanomaterial. I have not given you the composition, but you can see when I talk, because these are the real images. Okay, so for example, for 0D, you see, though this is a kind of a 2D image, but you can see that there are spherical nanoparticle, where if you look at this one, this scale is around 20 nanometer. So that means this scale, the diameter of this is going to be around 10 nanometer, right? So here, if the diameter is like that, then you can get a sphere which is also at the 10 nanometer. Okay, so once you start having some other examples, you will get to know very, very different types of material. I'm not going to discuss this in details because that is not part of your syllabus, and so it's a bit complicated why this kind of things are coming. Okay, so now look at this one. This is actually 5 nanometer scale. So this one is going to be around, I'm guessing it's going to be around 8 nanometer. Okay, if you look at something inside, that would be around 4 nanometer or something. So my idea to show this particular slide is that whatever we have discussed till now, you need to also see them in real life. Otherwise, what's the point of discussing? Okay, so these are actually the real images that I have taken. So 0 dimensional, then 1 dimensional. If you see, these are the 1 dimensional tubes. These are not carbon nanotubes, but could be some metallic nanotube. This is, I think, probably could be a carbon nanotube. Okay, so these are the examples where these 1 dimensional, the electron movements are not restricted. Okay, for example, if you look at this one, it's 1 micron. If this is 1 micron, from here to here, it could be around 3 micron or something. 3 micron in length. Okay, sorry. Whereas as far as the diameter is concerned, the diameter is going to be actually around within the nanometer range, right? This is some 2D material. Okay, these are, you may not see this properly, but this is essentially a sheet. This entire thing essentially is sheet. They have just taken from the top, so you may not see how they are oriented. If you just concentrate on one, let's say, you will see that in that particular case, there is no height as such. In this case, when you talk about this one, I said that the diameter in this particular case is at the nanoscale. In this case, this is a sheet. Okay, so the height here, length was different. Here the height is at the nanoscale. As far as the spreading is concerned, so electron movements are restricted on this height only. Okay, it can move around the surface. Okay, it can move around that plate, but it cannot actually, electron movement is restricted at the height level. So that's why it's a 2D nanomaterial. As far as the 3D goes, nothing is restricted as such. So if you can look at this scale is around 250 nanometer. So it's going to be around 500 nanometer, but anything above, I would say above 100 nanometer can be considered as bulk at this, at least the way we are actually defining them. Okay, so I hope you get some idea about how to classify based on their dimensionality. So let's talk about the composition. As far as the composition is concerned, again there is a huge possibility in which you can have different combinations of compositions, right? How you are going to define it? As chemists, people have come up with certain ideas. One of the common ways to think about is a metal versus non-metal objects. For example, in that way, people have found out in 3 major categories. The first one is inorganic nanomaterial. What does it mean? That's in a very, very crude term, that these kind of nanomaterials will have to have a metal in it. Okay, so contains metal. Okay, sometime people have taken silica also for this one. What I am trying to say in this one, once you start classifying in terms of composition, inorganic nanomaterials are those which should contain at least one metallic counterpart in their particular structure. Okay, so example is silver, gold, palladium, copper. Once you can make them at the nanoscale, then and only then you can put them in this classification. Okay, so nowadays this is actually a very, very hot topic of research. It's called transition metal chalcogenides. So essentially you can call it as MOS2, molybdenum sulfide, bismuth selenide. All these things are considered to be very important for various applications, but they are a typical class of 2D materials. You can make them in sheets. So that kind of takes care about the inorganic part. What about the organic nanomaterials? So organic means essentially by definition it has to have carbon. But if you closely look at this second and third one, we have separated these carbon nanomaterials into different classes. I'll tell you why. Because these are the materials, most of the cases they are polymeric material. You can also classify them as a polymeric material which contains carbon but no metal. At least that's how they are synthesized. You can add metal later on, okay? But that's a separate thing. At least how they are synthesized, it doesn't contain any metal. But their structures and properties are a bit different than this third class of carbon material, which is actually we have shown you that this got immense potential in this. What are these? These are essentially polymeric material, but they are still at the nanoscale. Okay, that's very, very important for you to know. People have found out that they have certain nanomaterials, even if they are made out of carbon, they have very different properties, which they cannot explain from this kind of approach. So we have classified them as carbon nanomaterials. Okay? Once you have classified them as carbon nanomaterials, in that one, what are the candidates? Graphene, fullerene, carbon nanotubes, carbon dots. This is called graphitic carbon nitride, that not only carbon, you can also have nitrogens, but as long as there is no metal, it should be classified as carbon nanomaterials. Because if you look at the structures, this graphene structure, it looks like benzene, they are actually side by side attached. So it got all the molecules that we have, they have a very, very unique sp2 conjugation. I hope you have some idea about what sp2 conjugation means. Essentially, that means that these ones you can think about So when I write like this, that means it is extended. So you can start with any benzene ring and then you can put the conjugation. So similarly, they will have like that kind of structure. What do you mean by conjugation? That means double bond, single bond, double bond, single bond, like that it will go. Essentially it does a very, very unique thing. It's actually, it can allow you to have a very high electrical conductivity. Why? Because these electrons, these pi electrons, can move around along the structures. That's why in all the cases they have very unique properties in terms of their electrical properties. So that's why it becomes very important to classify them separately. There are other ways also. People have tried to also identify in different ways. So for example, one is carbon-based nanomaterials, which you have just talked about, metal-based, which you can now classify as inorganic nanomaterial. There are nanocomposites and dendrimers. Dendrimers are, as I told you, it's a bit different types of molecule where you have a core. Think of this as a dendron that you have in your nervous system. Okay, so that's why it's a bit different. It's a bit different in terms of its property than the carbon material that we talked about earlier. But it's got some interesting property, and you can manipulate the size depending on the chemistry. Okay, and in between, one of them that is called nanocomposite. What do you mean by nanocomposite? Nanocomposites are nothing but a very, very interesting types of material where you can combine more than one types of nanomaterial. So for example, in this case, they have combined cobalt and chromium together to make a nanocomposite. On the other hand, they have combined this polymeric matrix, which is still also at the nanoscale. It doesn't always have to be. You can put a material, a nanomaterial on a different matrix or surface which may not be at the nanoscale. Then also you can make them as composite, because it looks like at least in that particular material, one of the ingredients will be at the nanoscale. This is what pretty much we wanted to discuss in terms of the composition. What's next? As I told you, let's talk about the origin first. Okay. This slide is a bit more. So what are the origin nanometers that you have by origin? Now there are majorly, they can be classified into two ways. One is the naturally occurring one. That means which are always present in air or atmosphere or environment. Okay. And another one is actually called anthropogenic, but essentially if you have problem understanding this term, you can think it's like man-made ones. So there are two ways by you can further classify this. One we call it as incidental, one we call it as engineered. Now what are the differences between these two? As I said, naturally occurring one is found in nature as results of natural processes. Be very careful about this term. This is very, very important term. Natural processes. For example, volcanic ash, mineral composites, they are already there in the environment, already there in the nature. So you are not doing anything to that. Okay. So they are naturally occurring nanomaterials. Whereas in terms of incidental nanomaterials, they are normally generated from the industrial applications, mostly as byproducts. Okay, so that's also very, very important. These are actually, people are generating this because of some processes, but they don't want to synthesize. For example, combustion products, smoke. For example, if you have a smoke coming off the industry, you don't want that smoke. You already know smoke is bad, but you can't really avoid that because your process needs that heat, and once combustion starts, then there will be smoke. And once smokes happen, there will be formation of carbon nanoparticle. So you can't really avoid it. It's called as an incidental. That means you are generating, whether you want to generate or not, but you are the ones who is actually using that procedure to generate some particle which is at the nanoscale. Now, what about engineered and synthetic ones? That means these are the ones which we can synthesize. These are the three ways by which you can classify in terms of their origin. One is naturally occurring, one is incidental, one is engineered or synthetic nanomaterial. I have given you some examples also. It's very simple one. Naturally occurring means volcanic ash, maybe something is coming out of the ocean which is at the nanoscale. Those are the things also can be considered. Whereas man-made is, there are two ways. Once you are synthesizing, once that is coming out of industry. They are also man-made. People are still focusing on to coming up with newer procedures to avoid them, but it's not that easy. Okay, so that's why they are called incidental nanomaterials. So as far as this three classes are concerned, I told you that those three are the major ones. Okay, now there are other ways also to classify. Okay, so if you just to put it in one form, we have talked about dimensionality, we have talked about composition. Though this composition, the way they have classified based on single and composite, but we have classified based on inorganic, organic and carbon based nanomaterial. We have already classified this, right? Now if you mixed more than one material, that will give you a composite. Once it's single material, you can classify single material into three categories further. Now as far as the morphology is concerned, I told you that there are different ways to come up with the morphological structure. Here what people normally take is actually classified into two ways. One is high aspect ratio, one is low aspect ratio. What do you mean by high aspect ratio? Aspect ratio essentially for nanoparticle or for any material is actually the ratio between length and the diameter or breadth. So in this case, for nanowire, length is much higher. For one-dimensional things, nanopillars, nanotubes, nanobelts, in all the cases, lengths are very long. Lengths are much higher than the diameter or the breadth. Right? So in that case, this has got high aspect ratio. Sphere, so in this case, nanospherical object, nowadays we call it as quantum dots or zero-dimensional material. Like that, you can come up with different one, nanopillars, nanopyramids, all of which they have got. Once again, remember one thing, that here you can have low aspect ratio with different dimensions. Okay, there we have defined based on the dimension. Here we are not defining based on the dimensions always. Here it's high versus low. Once you go to the last part, that is uniformity and agglomeration state, there are two ways by which you can separate. Now, uniformity means that if you synthesize a nanomaterial or if the nanomaterials are present in your nature, if you take a sample, in that sample, let's say you have 100 particles, whether 100 particles are of same size or different size. If they are approximately of the same size, we call it as isometric. That means all the particles are of same size. If they are different size, we call it as inhomogeneous, or sometimes it's also called as heterogeneous because the sizes are not same. Okay, now in this case, if you classify in these terms, then there are two possibilities. One, you have every particle separated from each other in isometric. While in another one, you can have particles that stick together. So now based on that, we can classify based on their agglomeration state. If they are separated from each other, then we call it as dispersed. If they are together, we call it as agglomeration state. Okay? In terms of inhomogeneous or heterogeneous particle also, we can define as dispersed or agglomerated. Because in this case also, if you have different sizes, then you can call it as inhomogeneous, but in that sizes also, if they are separated from each other, you can call it as dispersed. If they are together, you can call it as agglomeration. So with that, we are going to just wrap it up. So as far as our main classifications are concerned, we have classified this based on dimensionality, composition and origin, right? In that organic one I told you, we can also classify as carbon based material also. That's a different classification that we can also use. And origin, we can have naturally occurring, incidental and engineered. If you understand this part, that will be good enough for the classification of nanomaterial. So with that, I am going to stop here. I hope you have some idea about the classification of nanomaterial, and if you have any questions, please let me know, and in the next class I will start discussing about the synthesis of nanomaterials. Okay, with that, once again, thanks a lot for attending the classes.